All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to today's webinar, Discover SAP S/4HANA Cloud Digital Core. My name is Danny Smith, and I'm the Manager of Events and Marketing at Microexcel, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. During this webinar, we will discuss the SAP S/4HANA Cloud Digital Core and how it can fit into your ERP roadmap, how it is different from SAP's on-premise S/4HANA, and what the options are for deployment and/or migration. Our presenter for today is Mr. Abe Arriguez. Abe is the Global SAP Practice Leader at Microexcel with 19 years of experience in the technology industry. Just a few laundry items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent out in a few days. Also, we will have a Q&A portion at the end, so please type any questions that you may have in the questions box, and we will get to those in the order they are received. If you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to contact us at info@microexcel.com. At the conclusion of today's webinar, there will be a brief survey. Please do take a few moments and share your thoughts with us. So without further ado, I'd like to present our speaker for today's event, Mr. Abe Arriguez.
Thanks, Danny, and I appreciate the introduction there. So folks, we're looking forward to having this session with you today, and appreciate you taking the time to learn more about S/4HANA Cloud if it's new to you, or maybe you've heard something about the product or have some experience in it and want to kind of understand of how it fits into the overall SAP roadmap and strategy. But maybe to begin, can you give you just a quick introduction about our organization? So Microexcel has been an SAP-focused organization since its onset of 2001, but it's established a good reputation and solid capability around multiple technology disciplines, including SAP, Microsoft testing, and some other technology agnostic services. We're globally headquartered in Secaucus, New Jersey, with about just a bit north of 1,500 global employees. We pride ourselves in solving business problems, leveraging technology solutions, but always leading with business, which you'll hear kind of a theme as we kind of look through the S/4HANA Cloud portfolio. But without further ado, let's dive right into it. So just to kind of tie off on level set on what we will cover today. So due to the mixed audience, we knew that we needed to do a little bit of a level set on knowledge as far as S4. So I'd like to introduce S/4HANA Cloud, right, and how it's the foundation for the digital transformation, and a bit of a deep dive into the product, the offering, and what's included into the solution. But then we'll pivot and change a bit on the agenda to get into more of implementation and migration considerations. So which can be considerable, could be something sometimes daunting, based off your understanding of the product and how it fits into the portfolio. So we'd like to highlight a few examples and some key considerations around migrating and implementing, as well as some of the exclusive cloud tools that are embedded into the application for the benefit of a streamlined transformation and a streamlined implementation. So let's start off with S4, right? So for most of you in the audience, you've probably heard a good bit about S/4HANA and that being the digital core for all things SAP and the SAP world. You've probably seen some variation of these data points about the power of S/4HANA, really being the next generation ERP or business suite for the digital world, right? With some important pillars about getting instant and real-time insight, because it's all leveraging embedded in memory technology, to have an ability to reinvent your business processes because of that unshackling of innovation, on old database technology. And then also putting people first, right? Giving that insight, giving that power of process and acceleration, but in a intuitive, easy to use user experience with SAP Fiori, and all the meanwhile having a simpler, more efficient data footprint behind the scenes for lower total cost of ownership, right? So you've probably heard some variation of that narrative, from SAP or from the ecosystem or from just general information. But the one key question that I've always been asked is, well, how do I gain this type of value from the cloud, right? SAP historically has not been a cloud provider, though that's changing and has changed quite a bit, but so is the case around S4, right? So today it's about how do we garner this kind of level of innovation, and how do we take advantage and also rein in the velocity of change in technology and in the economy, and kind of bridge the two for the purposes of really driving the business imperative forward on behalf of an organization. So that's the key question to be able to answer. And SAP's statement on this is S/4HANA Cloud is that product. So there is now two main versions of S/4HANA, though there is a third, which I'll talk to a little bit more detail in a future slide. But S/4HANA Enterprise Management Cloud is what we're going to be talking about today. And it is meant to be the digital core, or let's say the modern ERP, delivered in a SaaS model out in the cloud, right? And some of the key benefits around looking at S/4HANA Enterprise Management Cloud, around the ability to have a flexible deployment. One thing that might be misunderstood, that though it's a cloud solution, there's an ability to leverage existing on-prem investments to add incremental value. About adding faster innovation, since SAP has been making significant investments into their cloud portfolio and their S4 and HANA portfolio, how do you have predictability in being able to have visibility to those innovations and be able to inculcate them into your organization for your benefit? Dynamic extensibility, being able to maintain the core, right, and avoiding those complex modifications, customizations that were the theme of projects of 10, 15 years ago, but not lose the nimbleness to extend, business process or just even interaction and integration to your business partners or things of the sort. Native integration, that's the challenge for all cloud providers, is that how do you nimbly implement cloud solutions, but still have an ability to integrate to other IT platforms, whether on-premise or cloud, and an ability to outsource, your S4 environment. I mean, some of the drives for organizations that have already made heavy SAP investments, or let's just say heavy ERP on-prem investments, was to get out of the business of managing your own infrastructure, managing a database, managing application administration. And now with S/4HANA Enterprise Management Cloud and solutions like that, you have an ability to outsource that component, so you can actually focus on more business value in your strategy. And we'll talk about guided configuration. About you probably heard the term best practices, ready to run. Those are not novel ideas, but how SAP's baked them into the offering is something that is very powerful, but also not very well understood by clients and even practitioners alike. But the key thing is, the key theme is we're shifting you away from very tactical, activity in running, sophisticated, complex environments, and outsourcing that so you can more focus on driving a digital business and simplifying your IT infrastructure and being able to still maintain a good inertia of innovation that supports your different line of businesses within your enterprise. So really, the key value that I would say is around the ease of management, right? So for all of you that have some sort of ERP solution, whether SAP or not SAP, to a large extent, you've been tethered to how quickly you can get releases from that software provider, or how quickly your IT team could upgrade your systems and then turn on innovation so that it can actually support the business. And those efforts were pretty significant and pretty daunting, pretty expensive and time consuming. The real key value is through all those pillars that we covered, ready to run best practices all the way to rapid innovation cycles. You're truly unleashing the innovation so that you can deliver value more incrementally, right? Because you're able to reduce project time frame, You're able to, have a little bit more spotlight on the business reasons why you're implementing technology, which we'll deep dive here a moment later on. But it's really about getting away from keeping the lights on kind of activity to things that are going to help you run your business more simply, more adeptly, but also more nimbly, more agilely, so that you can pivot, you can change, and compete in an ever-changing business climate and environment. If you think about the velocity of change in business today versus 5 years ago versus 10 years ago, that graph definitely takes an uphill hockey stick look on the graph. But how do we address that change, and how do we create new markets? How do we create new opportunities for business to engage with our customers and maybe our extended supply chains so that we could truly differentiate in our respective industry? So just a little bit of a spotlight on the fact of the usability in the application. So with S4HANA Cloud, the one thing I wanted to specifically call out is that it's built on the same code base of SAP's S4HANA on-prem tool. So it's meant to cover all your enterprise-wide core business processes, leveraging its HANA platform and in-memory technology. So that's still the same code base. However, they do have different release paths. Now, we'll cover about how you deal with, the release management and some considerations around that here in a moment. But the key thing to emphasize here is when you think about looking at S4HANA Cloud, really what you have to bring to the table as a customer is your data and a browser. So one key difference between S4HANA Cloud and S4 on-premise is from a usability perspective, you only leverage SAP's Fiori user interface to access the application through a URL. So there's no thick client to load on your machines. There's no software that needs to be loaded from that perspective. You can access it from any kind of device, whether it's a laptop, whether it's a smart phone, whether it's a tablet, right? But the purpose is to get that level of application support and insight, from an analytics perspective, down to the accounting side, down to the controlling side. But what I'll say is a thematic shift, and I should say not necessarily a shift, but maybe just a refocus within S4HANA Cloud, is that it really is predicated on your core business functions, right? What you're not seeing here is things like environmental health and safety. What you're not seeing here is HR, right? We'll talk about how you can piece those kind of solutions together here in a moment. But SAP very purposely built S4HANA Cloud in this manner so that customers that are wanting to maintain a low total cost of ownership and avoid, highly complex or highly expensive customizations are able to, because, the four walls around S4HANA Core are very well protected. And you have an ability to extend by integration to other cloud applications, whether SAP, like we say here on the left side, native integration to SuccessFactors, to more customer-facing with C4C or Hybris, or in the procurement side or in the supply chain side, leveraging SAP Ariba. So the key thing is that you're able to almost use building blocks, right, to extend the foundation, but the foundation is S4HANA Core, which can be maintained pristine. And that's a key difference, because even though we talked about best practices or staying to out of the box implementation on S4 on-prem or previous releases of SAP or any ERP package for that matter, but when the question got asked, hey, I have an exception in my business process, can the system do that out of the box? And the answer is no. We always had that out clause in the technology that allowed us to customize and address it. And the moment you did that, that's when kind of that snowball effect of customization started to take hold. And some customers have been leveraging the SAP technology for 10 plus years or 5 plus years, and had highly customized implementations, started to take more ownership of their own customizations and all the periphery considerations around that, like upgrades, testing, integrations, and regression testing, and things of the sort. What SAP has done with S4HANA Cloud is to give you a product that is able to protect itself from those expensive customizations. There's still an ability to extend, but you use the building block approach as a way to construct your solution, you know, in a more nimble, more agile way, because you could start layering at the velocity that you so choose, you know, bringing in business functionality that's truly transformational to your operations. Another key value point within S/4HANA Core, or Cloud, sorry, is the embedded analytics. Again, I think, you know, when I view successes of adopting technology, the proof in the pudding is when you get the reports and analytics that kind of show that evidence, that provide that evidence that you truly have a streamlined business process, that you truly have an integrated business process across the organization. And that's no different with S/4HANA Cloud. And actually the library of reports and dashboards and just analytic assets is tremendous within the product. And actually it's one of the areas that's probably not as well documented for SAP S/4HANA Cloud, but very powerful, because these are assets that are going to be available to you as a customer the moment you turn on the switch. There's no report writing you have to do. There's no data movement that you have to undertake to move data to a data warehouse to, you know, to another application, so that you can get this level of insight. You can get that level of insight, you know, the moment that you transact within S/4HANA Cloud, and you can, you know, run these reports. So that's a key thing that, you know, just remember and make note of. That's where, you know, you get that evidence and you get that power, and where you truly see that real-time insight. So a little bit of a comparison, right? You know, some of this information is publicly available information from SAP, but I think to a certain extent, you don't necessarily tell the complete picture of the differences between S/4HANA on-prem on the left side here to S/4HANA Enterprise Management Cloud on the right, and then kind of a variation and a hybrid of both. It's the private option, where it's still S/4HANA Enterprise Management, but hosted in a cloud environment, but still a dedicated instance for a customer. But I'll highlight a few things to take into consideration. So like I mentioned on my previous slide, with S/4HANA Enterprise Management Cloud, the way SAP gets constructed, it really focused on the essential digital business processes. Again, finance, procurement, manufacturing. Whereas when you pivot to the left side here with S/4HANA on-prem, you've got the full, you know, historical ERP scope. So, you know, think about, you know, extended warehouse management, think about extended business planning and consolidation, to environmental health and safety, to contingent, you know, labor, to HR, right? So there with an on-prem, you've got full process flexibility and complete configuration scope of all those scope areas, and extensions and modifications are possible. And that's, again, the important thing to note, because when you go to the S/4HANA Enterprise Management side, you have guided configuration capability for those essential digital business processes, and extensions to standard code are available, but tightly constrained and controlled through expert configuration, which SAP themselves account for, so they can maintain a multi-tenant environment, which we'll drill down to a little bit later on, but also extensibility, leveraging other tools like at the SAP Cloud Platform, but again, allowing you to maintain your full arms around your digital core processes, so that you're not customizing and you're not getting that genie out of that bottle. From a licensing perspective, obvious, right? You know, your enterprise management, you're dealing with a subscription, you know, in a SaaS commercial, versus enterprise management was a traditional license, and obviously a maintenance model on a perpetual license. But when we go down below, this is where you start, you know, seeing a little bit more of a divide between the solutions, because from an application management perspective, right, the run and maintain, the carry and feed in an on-prem world, you have to as the customer have to account for that. You have to have a solution, you have to have a team, maybe you're using an outside provider for that. Whereas in S/4HANA Enterprise Management Cloud, it's all embedded as part of that subscription license. And SAP owns that responsibility, whereas you own that responsibility in the on-prem world. But the key thing, and I'll delve down to the bottom side, is on the innovation cycle. So like any, enterprise application, there's updates, there's fixes, there's incremental application improvements, new functionality, and you have to have a release management strategy that you have to bake, you have to design, you have to execute, and you have to constantly improve for the release out to the business so you can minimize disruption to the business as much as possible. On the enterprise management cloud side, that's been prescribed in a manner that does minimize business disruption. So innovation cycles for S/4HANA Enterprise Management are on a quarterly basis. So the velocity of improvements to the product are considerable. SAP has made a significant investment in people and capital to rapidly accelerate the roadmap for S/4 Enterprise Management Cloud, but at the same time has a process of release management that empowers you, the user, to take those updates in a manner that doesn't disrupt the business. You'll have purview and test these things out, which we'll talk about here as we talk about release management. But these are kind of the key differences for it. But when you look at a table like this and you're starting to look at what products to consider, you really have to understand your own strategy. Are you an organization that has the faculties with people and IT teams to manage applications, and that's part of your pillar for IT governance, and that's how you'll always be? Well, maybe not looking at the cloud is appropriate for you, right? Or if you want to minimize your or control the level of growth in your IT organization and budgets, and want to have less tactical activity in running and maintaining infrastructure, and you want fast innovation, but in a controlled manner by an outside provider, then Enterprise Management Cloud might be a key thing to look at. But you have to have your own criteria, right? So we'll talk about that here as we determine strategy, but you have to kind of look at it what's appropriate for your organization. So let's pivot away from the product itself to a bit more, where do I begin? Though it's cloud, right? I think there's some misunderstanding sometimes with cloud that, all right, I can go buy, cloud like I would buy Office 365, right? I'll just go to Microsoft's website and buy a license and I start using it, and I'm ready to go. Well, cloud, for enterprise applications and for S/4HANA Cloud, there is some key questions that you have to answer for yourself, right? Because the key thing is, I think, there's almost a knee-jerk reaction in today's business world that, you have to have a digital strategy, to address, the business climate of today. But in reality, I like to think of it as that you have to determine your business strategy to compete in already digital world. I mean, the digitization of the economy has already happened, right? There's business models that have never existed 5-10 years ago that were able to be created and nurtured and grown because of the digitization of our business climate today, right? So I like to kind of pivot that, because the first question you need to answer yourself is, what is the business strategy? What's important to your business, right? Immaterial of whatever industry that you operate in, right? There's always key elements of a business, organization or enterprise that drive differentiation for your respective industries, right? So if you're in the consumer product side, right, the ability to have a good handle of your supply chain is paramount, right? Because you've got to be able to provide the right products in the manner that they need to be consumed, in the time that customers expected, and doing business through the channels that they expect to do business in, right? So you have to kind of take a step back and not let technology drive that conversation. And I think sometimes organizations think with cloud, because it's controlled, and because it's ready to run, and it's because it's it's what you see is what you get. That we have to forget the business conversation, but nothing could be further from the truth, right? Because I think you need to understand what really drives your business. What are the business areas that are table stakes, and what are the business processes that allow you to be who you are, your secret sauce, or the things that make you unique and differentiate within respective competitive segment, right? So you still have to establish those business priorities, because that determines your your decision criteria. Same time, you do have to look at your IT strategy and your architecture and landscape to understand what are your constraints with your current infrastructure, right? Are you looking to have cloud as a pillar of your IT strategy? And if yes, how much or how little or how fast? So these things you have to have a very transparent conversation within your IT organization, so that ultimately you can start examining your business processes and start marrying, the landscape, their IT technology with the business priority, and to see if there's gaps. And if there is gaps, how do you fulfill them? And maybe cloud is the answer, right? And what point, do cloud accelerate, a roadmap and a strategy, right? Now, but I will tell you that the other important paradigm shift with S/4HANA Cloud and cloud technology in general is you don't have to tackle a wholesale change overnight, right? So you go through these first 3 steps of establishing business priorities, assessing your current landscape. You see that, wait a minute, we're 10 years behind, right? As we drill down into some of our processes, we're really getting to some real challenges into the business line of business areas that really drive our business. And we need to make a change, right? And some organization thinks, okay, well, we've got to replatform everything and we have to do it right away, or we're going to lose an opportunity. The problem with that statement is that that velocity of change could completely suffocate an organization, right? Because there is still change management that has to be addressed both on a business side and also from an IT perspective when you're introducing cloud to the organization, right? So you have to understand that, the process improvement can be incremental, and with how S/4HANA Cloud is architected, you can bring in pieces of it rather than, maybe by geography, maybe by line of business, right? But you're going to have some nimbleness, you're going to have some pathing, you have some options, and you're not necessarily tethered to a complete 180 shift that you're going to have to, undertake the next 2 years to do that replacement. It's not, that's not what really drives cloud innovation. So remember those things. So a little bit of data around that. So when we look at S/4HANA Cloud and how it's architected, you can truly implement cloud solutions at your pace based off those priorities and imperatives that we identified when we asked those key questions from the previous slide before. But what I've seen and what we've seen kind of through the SAP world is customers are looking to yes, go wholesale, maybe cloud, maybe they take the whole enterprise and move it to S/4HANA Cloud because maybe they're replacing an old ERP application or multiple applications. But then you've got customers that maybe have already made significant investments into S/4 on-premise or maybe ECC or previous releases, right? But are looking to take advantage of cloud, maybe for rollouts of disparate business units that are in non-key geographies or their new business acquisitions, right? The key thing is that with S/4HANA Cloud, it's almost, within your enterprise, you can almost start anywhere and everywhere. You just need to ask yourselves what's going to be the important levers to make that decision, on behalf of your organization, right? Can you absorb a wholesale change to replace your complete enterprise application portfolio? Some organizations, the answer is yes. Or you're just looking to quickly expand the footprint, but don't want to deploy on-prem technology for, maybe you're expanding your business into Africa and, the IT infrastructure capability there, maybe not at the level that you have it here in the United States. But you do have internet access and people have devices that they can access applications for. So that might allow you to just roll out S/4HANA Cloud for that geography or that business unit, right? So it really just gives you an opportunity to think about rollouts and deployment strategies, in a different manner. And it doesn't have to be exclusively cloud, doesn't have to be exclusively on-prem. It could be a hybrid. So when you start really trying to determine what the right path is for you, right? Now, when you look at this row 1, and those offer the different starting points, right? So, for most of these buckets, it assumes that you're an existing SAP customer, whether it's an older ERP release whether it's a newer ERP release with S4, or you're coming from any legacy ERP application, right? But I'm going to focus here for a moment for existing SAP customers that are looking to migrate to S4, but maybe haven't made the decision on S4 on-premise or S4HANA Cloud, right? So there's some prerequisites that you kind of need to determine as you migrate, to S4. Depending on the amount of customization that come out of enhancements that you've made, right, that's going to determine whether you're going to be able to do a one-step migration that can go either the on-prem side or to the public cloud side, right? But I think what really differentiates which path that you take is twofold. One is you do need to get your arms around the order of magnitude to do the migration effort, because in some cases there's customers that deployed SAP, 10, 15 years ago, and they modify it so much that there's not a standard migration process and they have to re-implement. So that's the first question that you have to be able to answer. Second question is, once you've got that answer and whether it's technically possible, is really start to ask the questions, and almost in parallel, around the business case. And what that means is, what kind of data effort do I have? With any application, and it's no different with S4HANA Cloud or S4 on-prem. The application is only as good as the data that resides in there. What opportunity gets created by looking to move to S4HANA Cloud is the fact that you can relook at data again, right? You maybe data normalization or master data management has been a challenge for you because of all that customization and the disconnection of your different business units across the enterprise. Now you have an opportunity, to cleanse that data, to normalize it, to bring it together, and to make sure it's meaningful across the whole organization and within your technology in S4HANA Cloud or S4 on-prem, right? So you have to understand that from an order of magnitude perspective, but also from the way that data is your capital, right? When you think about your customer master, when you think about your material master, and when you think about your product master, these are all, important elements in conducting day in, day out business with your partners, whether it's customers or vendors alike. So if there's not a common language, with data, then you're going to miss out on opportunities for standardized, simplified processes, which do have an opportunity cost, right? So that justifies the business case. The remediation work, right? If you see that the remediation work is going to take a significant amount of effort, but when you drill down to it, you see that a lot of it was done because there was a gap in functionality in your original deployment, but it could be replaced by standard functionality. Well, that not only starts to shape the decision you're going to make, it also justifies it because you're going to be able to reduce the total cost of ownership of releasing those modifications or enhancements. Architectural complexity. I'm talking to a customer right now that is looking to deploy S4HANA Cloud to replace their ERP operations, and they're going to be able to retire 43 different applications. And not only 43 different applications, all the infrastructure that supports those. Think about databases, think about servers, think about network infrastructure, right? And those are all hard dollars there, and they're going to be able to get into one platform that, with the limited resources that they have, are going to be more adeptly able to manage and still continue to drive business innovation for the organization. There's also going to be opportunity for business model changes. So when you look at, in that same example where, the customer is leveraging all these applications, they were constrained on some of the business processes because they were using one application for their ERP operations and another one for warehouse management. And the moment they manufacture product, they actually had to take another step in another system to put that as inventory that could be used for product shipment. And just in that single step, if you just put sense to that process and you multiply it over 10 years when they're doing it, at least 1,000 times in a day, that is expensive complexity. And they're going to be able to change that, and change their business processes to simplify them so they can be more nimble and they can reduce their order times, right? So those are the things that justify those business model changes. And I really want to emphasize those things, because those business model changes could be new business processes that you introduce to the organization, or they can be your business processes reimagined without, again, the shackles and constraints of old technology, right? So again, it's a bit nuanced thinking about, technology having a role, but it shouldn't be the driving force to why you make the change, right? So this role of business change is absolutely vital that you define, and when you align it to your IT strategy where you want to go down the cloud path, then you start to make decisions on, like, do I go down the S4HANA cloud path, or whether you make the S4HANA on-prem decision, right? But once you make those decisions, now you elect to pick your project type, where you can do a complete brownfield project, or you can do greenfield where you're starting from scratch, or you can do it in phases because you're releasing it through controlled innovation around S4HANA Cloud. So let's talk about deployment tools and approach for S4HANA Cloud specifically. And the thing that I want to call out is one also common misunderstanding that S4HANA Cloud is simply a technology solution. And in reality, it's much more than that, because what you're getting with a S4HANA Cloud license or subscription, you're actually getting a lot of not only the 43 years plus of ERP experience that SAP has garnered over the years through their hundreds of thousands of deployments, which are now in turn embedded into this S4HANA model company. It's meant to be a springboard for your digital transformation effort, right? Because the thing about it is that some organizations, when they hear digital transformation, they think big project, big change. It's something that I have to do, but it's a fundamental shift of how I operate business. In reality, no, it's an incremental shift on how you want to explore the digital world. But the tools and the processes and the out-of-the-box best practices that you're going to get out of S4HANA accelerate that transformation journey. So the moment that you get an environment provision for your organization on S4HANA Cloud, you're going to have a complete end-to-end model company with finance, manufacturing, and procurement already pre-configured to accelerate the discussion around how do we design the solution, right? And it's already delivered in a lower total cost of ownership because it's configured out of the box, obviously within the four walls of the S4HANA Cloud deployment product. But at the same time, they provide this very valuable migration and integration content. So when you move data from your whatever system that you're coming from, whether it's an SAP system and you're migrating to S4 HANA Cloud, or whether you're dealing with another application altogether, there's migration content that's going to help in that data conversation and then the data stream of a project. So that we're not running to understand what the data model is, and we're not running to catch up on trying to get clean data into the system at the tail end of a project. Same can be said about integration content. Though the four walls are tightly controlled around S4HANA Cloud, there's extensibility options that are going to allow you to integrate. There's not one application that's going to take 100% of your business functions within your enterprise. That's folly to think that any application is going to do that. S4HANA Cloud is the same way, and it's architected, with that understanding. So if you need to integrate into a CRM application, or you need to integrate into payroll, whether you're using RF devices or an external warehouse, there's already integration content that SAP delivers as part of your subscription so that you can rapidly build integrations. And we'll talk about the SAP Cloud Platform in its role. It's not depicted here, but it's very important in the deployment of S4HANA Cloud. Now, on the tool side, though, there's some very powerful, and I think to a certain extent, this is the evidence of SAP's commitment to this product, because there is some embedded tools within S4HANA Cloud that are exclusively only exist in S4HANA Cloud. So the test automation and migration engine is two tool sets that only exist in S4HANA Cloud. And what they allow you to do is to, in an automated fashion, is to test every business process within the scope of your deployment in an automated fashion. You don't have to build those test cases out. You already have them built in those embedded best practices for S4HANA Cloud. That is very powerful when it comes to testing out integrations, as you continually, evolve in your organization, And then also when you want to, when new release of functionality, and you want to test to make sure there's no impact to your business, you have an ability to quickly automate all the, those business processes to be run in that testing tool, so that you could say, oh, you know what, there is a change here on the finance side, and we're going to have to account for, and we've got some time frame to do that. But that testing process could have taken months, with traditional tools. With here, now you have an ability to rapidly accelerate some of those things. Additionally, self-service configuration. So again, that's a concept exclusive to S/4HANA Cloud. For those SAP customers on the line, everybody that has configured the system before is familiar with their IMG tools or their ABAP Workbench. Or in S/4HANA Cloud, you don't have access to those purposely, right? So that eliminates that need to customize, right? But there's still an ability to configure your system through guided configuration wizards, for lack of a better word. So you actually can quickly get your system personalized for your environment, leveraging those configuration tools. And then for the ones that are a bit more complex that might have an impact on a multi-tenant environment, SAP will account for those, or your system integrator will account for those, but in a very controlled manner, so that it doesn't impact customer A, B, and C that are in the same cloud tenants, but on different instances of S/4HANA Cloud. So these tools were very purposely built to accelerate deployment, to accelerate the adoption of innovation that gets released as part of the quarterly release updates, and they only exist in this S/4HANA Cloud. So again, I made the comment earlier, S/4HANA Cloud is on a different release plan and schedule than S/4HANA on-prem. So just because it exists on one side doesn't necessarily mean in the other, and more frequently than not, a lot of the innovation and a lot of tools are being built for cloud first. So remember that as you start planning your IT strategy on how to manage these deployments. So other key elements and other key considerations that may not be well documented. So for those that have had some exposure to S/4HANA Cloud, and maybe you've read up on some material, right? You probably could find a lot of documentation of what functionality is available, what's in the different releases, the quarter releases, and what's on the potential roadmap for a couple releases from now. But there's other things that are not necessarily so well documented that are still very important. And through our experience, and having conversations with clients that are evaluating and deploying S/4HANA Cloud, these are a few things that I wanted to highlight that just be prepared with, to ask and find out about these things, as you undertake your S/4HANA Cloud journey. First, be prepared to adopt best practice processes, and I know to fit the standard, but as I said before, best practices or pre-configured solutions or rapid deployment solutions have existed for years, but there's always been an ability to customize and enhance. And the moment that is an available option to a business, that has a particular need that they think makes them unique, and we say yes to that customization, we've departed from best practices. You have to have that mentality when you deploy S/4HANA Cloud, that what I get in the application is truly what I'm going to get. I'm not going to be able to customize it. I'm not going to be able to modify the application, purposely so, right? So we can maintain a manageable and predictable total cost of ownership, right? If you are not prepared to unequivocally take best practices, out of the box, then you really do need to ask yourself whether S/4HANA Cloud is the right tool for you, because it really tries to drive commonality across these business processes. Again, there's still an ability to have a nimble, flexible deployment, right? But we're not talking about, like, if I'm developing a whole new business, application in S4 on-prem, I'm not going to be able to do that in S/4HANA Cloud. I have an ability to extend and integrate, and we'll talk about that in the next point here. But you have to maintain your essential business processes, to best practices, so you can simplify and standardize. If that's not going to be a fit for you, then you need to know that to begin with, because maybe you go down a different path. But if you're ready to adopt it, then there's a lot of power to what S/4HANA Cloud can provide to you. Now, second thing, again, to my earlier statement about integration, just because it's cloud doesn't mean it operates independently. It still has to be integrated, right? So with S/4HANA Cloud, you have to have the integration discussion early, because the reality is that you are going to integrate it to other applications. And and you have to determine your tool set that you're going to leverage in building those integrations. You can use a direct point-to-point integration, leveraging APIs, but what you have to understand is that though the velocity of improvement in S/4HANA Cloud is tremendous. It's actually very impressive. I mean, the product's been out for less than a couple years, but the maturity of the ecosystem, both from technology and even from just a knowledge-based perspective, doesn't compare to what traditional ERP has been built around, right? Whether it's ECC or S/4 on-prem, there's been a bit more history that's been built, a little bit more lessons learned and things of the sort, right? So on the S/4HANA Cloud side, SAP is rapidly evolving the product, but also in the ability to integrate. So there's a concept called whitelisted APIs, which think of them as the doors that a customer can open to connect to other systems. And there's some doors that are, that are under lock and key right now that you cannot open. And you need to know that, because if there's a gap there, you need to know that and account for that in your strategy. So you might have to operate independently for a while, or you might have to get creative leveraging another platform for integration. There's different ways to tackle that challenge, but you don't want to be surprised on that once you've made the decision and you're already going through the implementation. Second piece of it, and I think it's the unsung, hero in a cloud deployment, is the SAP Cloud Platform, because that becomes the integration platform for all things SAP Cloud and on-prem. And there is a bit more nimbleness and flexibility with developing integrations through SAP Cloud Platform from S/4HANA Cloud, and more options become available. And then at the same time, you're able to quickly leverage the integration content that SAP releases as part of the subscriptions to build rapid integrations. So it might have taken me months before to build an interface to maybe, let's say, a payroll system. Now I can do that in a moment of days with composite applications leveraging SAP Cloud Platform that can be brought in and leveraged for S/4HANA Cloud, right? So if you're starting to ask that integration question and you're starting to talk to SAP about these things, absolutely talk about the SAP Cloud Platform. Or HCI, as it once was known for some of the SAP customers are accustomed to that vernacular, but it should be part of that discussion. Extensibility. So if you do want to get beyond the four walls of the S/4HANA Cloud product, how do you want to extend it? Now, the SAP Cloud Platform also plays a role in that, but you have to determine where their potential opportunities are, whether they're going to happen, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, or 4 years from now. You want to have an extensibility strategy, so that you're not having to run to catch up and figure out if you have to buy another tool and you bring it into the fray. Have that discussion early and often. Now, the last 2 points are probably the ones that I want to make sure that I emphasize, because now we're talking about guided configuration, automated data migration, and automated testing, right? More best practices. The deployment at S/4HANA Cloud creates an opportunity or a missed opportunity of putting the focus on organizational change, process, and data, right? Because I'm not having to spend, S/4HANA Cloud can be deployed in weeks, not months, not years, right? And why? Because of all the things that we already talked about, with the embedded tools, best practices, guided configurations, and things of the sort. So now you have an opportunity to put the organizational change at the forefront. At the end of the day, when you think about the key elements of a strategy, people, process, tools, right? We always tend to remember process and we always remember tools, but the thing that we miss sometimes is the people side of it, and that might be the case with S/4HANA Cloud. And you have an opportunity here where, as you're starting to do those, fit the standard, right, to best practices, you're going to simplify and standardize processes, which means organizational change. But you're going to see that impact and change very early in the project. So now your organizational change plan can be done with the lens of precision throughout the whole project instead of at the tail end of the project, right? So now you've got a longer runway to get the business ready to adopt the application when you turn on the switch. And now they're going to be able to fully leverage the power of streamlined and simplified processes within S4HANA Core with clean data, right? So that's the key thing. But you have to be able to have your organizational strategy, determined early and execute throughout, and that's what S4HANA Cloud provides. Additionally, because S4HANA Cloud is a cloud application, I think there's also a misunderstanding that IT goes away. It does not. It gets away from the tactical, but IT still needs to have a role in securing the application. S4HANA Cloud is role-based application, so you can control access, to transaction level and by the role that you play in different business segments and things of the sort. But that still has to be designed and defined, right? And then, of course, what we already talked about, integration, and then reporting. There's an immense library that exists in S4HANA Cloud, but there is, you might want to personalize some of your views, and SAP actually gives you an ability to create and enhance views of data that reside within the S4HANA Cloud application for the benefit of creating your own analytical assets, right? So those are more business value driven discussions than let's say, how is my system necessarily performing, right? So IT still needs to have a seat at the table, and because of this product, they're going to be able to get away from the tactical and more focus on business innovation change, and hopefully align more to the business imperatives of your business strategy for your organization. So really, in conclusion, right? So the key thing is S4HANA Cloud Edition, right? Again, SaaS product that is going to be hosted by SAP in a multi-tenant environment, given to you in a subscription license. But it's a great fit for companies that are looking to be more agile, right? That they want to take care of their core, whatever core business functions around manufacturing, business, finance management, and procurement. But having flexibility of deployment and having an ability to innovate, at a greater pace or a faster time frame. It's really great for businesses that, are growing rapidly, right? Maybe you're a smaller organization that are under hyper growth mode, or you're a large organization that are looking to acquire a lot of organizations, or your business is changing so dynamically that your technology within your IT department or your IT strategy is still very much slowed down by 10 years ago thinking or 10 years old technology. S4HANA Cloud is a great option for that kind of environment, right? It's not necessarily perfect fit for everything, right? But hopefully in what we covered, you kind of see the key considerations and the questions to ask and the questions to ask yourselves to make sure that your decision criteria is appropriate. Second thing is, you don't have to go full-blown S4HANA Cloud. For those customers that already have investments in S4 on-prem or ECC on-prem, you can leverage it so that you can take advantage of both worlds, and now you've got a roadmap that incrementally moves you to cloud and doesn't necessarily transform you to a cloud organization overnight if that's not for you. Additionally, because of all the lessons learned and experience in deploying ERP to customers, hundreds of thousands of customers, the embedded best practices and tools in S4HANA Cloud are purposely built to jumpstart implementations to get you to the time to value quicker, but at the same time, almost protect yourself against the business conversation of, hey, we're very unique because of this, and I want you to, create an application within our ERP to address this requirement that happens once in a blue moon, right? Stop me if you've heard that before. But those are the dangerous conversations because it's not tightly governed and managed. That's what's going to lead to those complex deployments that are just going to kind of snowball and create these sophisticated, complex, costly implementations. But last but not least, if I didn't emphasize it enough, I'll emphasize it now. You have to still have the business conversation. Yes, you're adopting best practices out of the box. Yes, you're simplifying and standardizing, right? But at the same time, there's going to be a component of your organization that makes it uniquely you, or that you feel is going to transform how you compete in your industry, right? That understanding, that delineation of what's important, maybe we're more customer focused and less about the operations, or we're more about the operations and more about customer facing. Whatever that is, whatever makes your organization unique is what should shape how you deploy S4HANA, or whether you have to go down S4HANA cloud path. Now, I would challenge to say that there isn't an organization that couldn't benefit from a cloud deployment, but there is some valid reasons why not. But I think the most important pillar of your decision criteria should be predicated on what the business needs, when it needs it, and with an understanding of how you're going to operate in your respective ecosystems in your industry, and see how S4HANA Cloud can support that strategy. So just as a summation, so hopefully you found a lot of this information useful, whatever path you are in your journey to look at S4HANA Cloud. But the kind of information that I've shared with you has been garnered from our experience with working with customers out in the ecosystem, whether it was in older ECC systems that are migrating to S4HANA, whether on-prem or on cloud now. But we do offer services from advisory on planning to adoption roadmaps to the deployment to the migration. And we do that in a nimble manner because we are a global organization that we can provide you 24/7 resource availability, where we can be pretty competitive and flexible in how we deploy. But probably most importantly is giving you the right type of advisory and solution architecture advice, coupled with an ability to commoditize a lot of the kind of transactional build of S4HANA. And it fits very well with S4HANA Cloud, just because, again, the theme is try to simplify these implementations, get to the finish line in a more predictable, shorter time frame. So if you're undertaking your journey and you're looking to get some help in asking these questions or come up with the answers, hopefully you can reach out to us and we can play a role there. So I appreciate the time, but we'll transition now back to Danny, who, if there's any question and answers, go ahead and fire away.
Thank you, Abe. As it is the top of the hour, we do have just a few minutes for questions. Like Abe said, if you do have any questions, please type those in the questions box. We have had one come through during your presentation, and that is reporting limited in S4HANA Cloud?
Great question, and actually, it's probably one of the more powerful areas in S4HANA Cloud. It's not necessarily, I think I mentioned earlier, that it's not necessarily well documented, but there's a library of hundreds and hundreds of reports and a significant amount of embedded analytics that you can leverage right out of the box, and also can personalize because SAP gives you control to the data models for those reports in the application, so that you can personalize content for whatever type of insight that you potentially may need, as long as that data resides in S4HANA Core or Cloud. Sorry.
Thank you, Abe. We'll give everyone just a few minutes here to get questions in. And it looks like the next question is, do we have control over our customers' client requirements, like shipping labels, etc.?
Fantastic question. So that's one of those areas too, that's a key consideration, and you probably won't run into it until you're designing your solution. But with S4HANA Cloud, you actually also get a license and subscription for Adobe Lifecycle Management. So in traditional on-prem world, we might use code or ABAP to create custom forms based off customer requirements. Maybe I'm doing business with Walmart and they have very specific requirements on how shipping forms and bill of ladings are constructed. I have an ability to create my own forms and layouts in S4HANA Cloud, but with the Adobe Lifecycle Manager and not through the ABAP Workbench.
Okay, and then the next question we've just had come through is, does S4HANA Cloud allow for web service calls to facilitate external apps calling for data from S4HANA Cloud?
Yes, they do. So now there is probably about 60 or so whitelisted APIs, what I mentioned earlier, that SAP makes available in the current release, and that library will continue to grow in every release. And those APIs can be called externally for reading or writing data, depending on what API it is. There's a lot of documentation that's available in SAP site that describes whether you can pull or push data. But that's the type of calls that you can make externally. And again, they're a little bit over 60, I believe, right now, and that's going to continue to grow.
Okay, the next question we've had come through is, do we need support for S/4HANA Cloud?
Great question. So we talked about administration being outsourced to SAP as part of the subscription. However, there is still room for support on the, what I'll say, the functional side, right? So you think about it as your business is, let's say, order management people are out there and they run into an issue as they're using the application. They still need to have some sort of support or some sort of safety net, right? So you still have to determine what your support strategy will be for those type of issues. So whether you do that internally, whether you use an external support provider like Microexcel or whomever, you still have to have that as part of your strategy. The thing that you outsource is really the run and maintain of the infrastructure itself and the database.
Thank you, Abe. Now it does look like that those are all of the questions. So this will conclude today's webinar. A recording of this will be sent to all participants. You will each be receiving our survey as well, so please take a few moments and provide your feedback on today's webinar. In the meantime, if you have any other questions, please do email info@microexcel.com. Thank you and have a wonderful day.